I want to talk about family. I want to talk about this time of year because this time of year is really, really hard if you're a non believer. I would argue it might be the hardest. I mean, Easter would be a runner up, but I think people just like do the Christmas thing more than Easter. And of course, I'm talking about for our fellow ex-Christians here specifically. If you come from that background, if only for the fact that, it's the most popular holiday in the United States, certainly in Canada, certainly in other parts of the world. So it's the biggest deal Christians make like around this time. And it's kind of hard, especially if you come from that background, to kind of figure out what do you do now? Because I'm not celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ when I'm giving my parents like gifts for Christmas anymore. Like that part doesn't matter. But like, there's still a lot of these traditions. There's still a lot of like this discourse that happens around the holidays, and it can get kind of messy. And so, Erin, I'm glad that you are here with me this time because I wanted us to kind of have a show of reflection on that, but also because you had an experience recently that I think a lot of us can relate to, and a lot of us could really hear to get some comfort out of, if only for some solidarity. So I was hoping you can kind of talk about what happened.
Yeah, we talked about how I was going to share this a little bit. So this is going to be my third year, I guess, as an atheist for Christmas. And in past years, I've really enjoyed. Actually, I actually think I've enjoyed Christmas more over the last few years. I felt like I was able to get more into like just making the fun parts of it, like the gift giving and like just enjoying like whatever, like hot chocolate outside and looking at the lights. But this year does feel a little different for me. This is the first year that I am somewhat estranged from my family. So it definitely feels a lot different this year. Just knowing that there's a disconnection there, and knowing that there are so many other people too that are experiencing that right now, whether it's like a full on your, everybody knows what's going on, and there's just a comfort there, or whether their family has cut you out of their lives, or maybe you've cut them out of your life. Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's more permanent. This is the first year I've experienced a little bit of disconnection that way. So I'm definitely feeling different this year for Christmas. I am focused on, so I'm a mom. I've got 2 little kids. So I'm focusing a lot this year on spending all of my time and energy with my kids and making it really fun for them. This is also the first year where maybe there's less communication going on, even just about what kind of stuff I would have been invited to in previous years, even though it didn't mean the same thing to me. Not even really knowing what's going on as far as like the Christian part of the holiday. So this is probably the first time that's really not even on my radar. And it's different. It's different. It's hard.
So I kind of want you to speak to this and obviously talk about this as, to the degree of comfort that you're able to talk about. But recently your family kind of figured out not only that you're an atheist, I think they knew that, but that you're an activist. Like you're online talking about stuff. And one of a family member of yours saw a video of yours and shared it with other family members. And then, stuff kind of happened from there. So maybe if you could pick it up and kind of tell us what happened.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I don't actually know the full story of what happened. I have been doing activism like type projects for the last, I guess it'll be coming up on 2 years here pretty soon. Sharing my story on Twitter, and then eventually people asking me to come on their channels doing interviews, and then eventually coming on Truth Wanted and starting all this. So it was kind of a gradual slide into activism, and it's been such a great experience for me. But I think there was part of it that I wasn't quite ready to share with everybody, even though I know I put my face out there, and obviously I knew that it would all come to like everybody would find out everything. And I felt really comfortable with that idea for a really long time. But I think I've been given some kind of phrasing to put on this. I think that maybe not getting ahead of that, being able to present it the way that I was hoping to, has kind of backfired in a way, because I had no control over what was the very first thing that they saw. And I honestly don't know if they've watched everything. So it's kind of like maybe getting just a very small portion of the story. And it just, it ended up being extremely hurtful to them. It's been...
So what was their response specifically when they found out?
The response was just kind of, this is incredibly hurtful, and we need to take some space. And I actually I'm like, I understand that. I always knew that being critical of something that is so important to the identity of people that I love, it was going to be hurtful. I think hoping that maybe that the whole picture would come forward a little bit more, but that's not what happened. And so it's been traumatic, I'm sure, for them. It's been very traumatic to learn all this, like everything's changed so much. So I think there was not a lot of conversation at first, and then eventually there's kind of like, we just need some space from you. And so with the exception of a few conversations, that's pretty much where we're at still.
And so now they're not even inviting you to hang out during the holidays?
No, there's all the kind of other things that had nothing kind of to do with Christianity. Obviously, it's your family, the little things like the text messaging, the sending each other things that are funny, all of those connections kind of get severed when there's something like this that happens. So even it's just the weird things that you don't expect to be missing so much. I think that's what's been the hardest, is that you lose out on that kind of just that social support that you have with people when they're really quite upset with you. And then of course, like when there's a disconnection there, you start to question yourself a lot too. So it's been it's been a few months, and you do spend a lot of time kind of evaluating like what have I done. At times I've thought like I wish I could take it all back, but then the very next minute I'm like, no, like everything that has happened, like I've grown a lot as a person. I've met so many wonderful people, and I've looked over the things that I've put on the internet, and I still feel that way for the most part. Everything that I've really said so far, I'm not to say that I haven't grown and changed my opinions, but I see that all as part of my story. And I kind of did go a little bit quiet online for a little while because I just wasn't quite sure how to move forward. And then I did mention it recently that it's been kind of hard lately. And I was just inundated with messages from real, true friends that I've made since doing this. Either through online forum type like things like friends that are specifically just online, and friends that I've gotten to know in other ways too. So phone calls, text messages, video calls, just to check in. And that was the big reminder for me of like why this has been such an important journey for me, and why I have continued to kind of move forward in speaking about this and continuing to try to like bring more conversation and make other people know that this what I'm experiencing is not unique in a lot of ways. But definitely. Maybe I'm just the one who put my face on it.
Right. That's like, if you asked me if I had any regrets about doing any of this stuff, I would tell you no. I feel the same as you, though. I wish when it came to my family and when it came to the people I knew, I wish I could have told that story to them myself. But I waited a long time, and eventually it got to them from people that weren't me, right, in a very similar light. And so like I didn't have control over that story. It stopped becoming my story. Suddenly it became a different story, and that story was, oh well, Dan has fallen prey to these people, he's not himself, he's being used, any kinds of stuff you can make up, whatever. I just want to sin, any of those kinds of things that you typically hear were suddenly the stories that people got from me. And that's something I guess I do regret in that sense. But at the same time, I don't know if it could have really gone too differently in the sense of them accepting that. Because as you said, it can be traumatic when you understand that somebody you love actually has this almost hidden life or hidden beliefs about the world. And I think it's hard for people to understand why they hide that. I know it was hard for my parents in particular. They didn't know why I was kind of keeping this from them, because it's like I know that it's hard to understand, because like the reason why I'm here is because I went through this whole journey and that you're just seeing the end result of that. You're not getting to see that whole process. So of course you're not going to be able to understand it. It's really difficult. On top of the fact that we're just talking about stuff that society really just tells us not to talk about, right? I mean, like, we're going against the mainstream culture. We're saying that this thing that people have believed for thousands of years is wrong. And that's controversial, to say the least, right? So
yeah,
it's hard, Erin. And I'm just really grateful that I get to know you. I think you're an incredibly brave person. I think you're really wonderful. And I'm so glad that at least here at Truth Wanted, I get to call you my family and we get to hang out together, because I don't think it's right for them to do that. And like if my mother became a pagan, doesn't mean I'm not going to spend Christmas with her. I don't know. There's something about Christianity, or at least fundamentalist Christianity, that says you can't associate with people that don't think the same as you, and that's such a harsh belief to have. It's really sad, really, really sad. But anyway, how are you processing things now that things have kind of lifted? Do you feel a sense of relief at all? Do you think that there's any good that's
yeah,
come from this?
yeah. Yes and no. Obviously, yes and no. Thank you for saying that, by the way. Got me choked up a little bit. I did want to say, like, one thing before I go, is that what you said about that too, that idea that we kind of are like have this secret life. Like I when I think back onto the last 2 years, I don't think I could have done it very differently either, because the first few months, like, I had some stuff I needed to process, and I needed to find people I needed to process that with. And my next phase was I needed to meet just a single person that felt like me. I think if I had gone straight to family, I thought I probably would have said even more hurtful things. And so part of it is like this, I'm not quite ready, but now I don't really know what's a good time. I'm also going to be considering things like the theology that I know that they're a part of. COVID and all that really throws a wrench into it too, because that also complicates it, because there's obviously different views about what's going on in the world outside of what I was raised with, because there wasn't a pandemic growing up. But there is a sense of relief knowing that as much as sometimes I would like to kind of go back and be able to just put on that mask again, kind of just to be like, let's just go back to normal for like a day, and I will go back and be my kind of small Christian self, but at the same time knowing now that I have kind of like this space now that I've created for myself, because I've done this work to create a space for my voice. So I'm hoping that, I mean, I don't know how things are going to fall over the next few years, but knowing that I have broken that idea that I am this small person that doesn't have opinions about things, there is something like freeing about that, and that I'm kind of declaring this space to exist in the way that is healthy for me. So that will be something I am looking forward to one day, even if things continue to be strained with them, knowing that because I'm not trying to hide anything from them, I don't also have to hide anything from people that I meet going forward. So new friends I make, I can start off on this very honest and authentic step, like this, from a place of authenticity now. So that's kind of one of my goals going forward, is to continue to kind of carve out this path for myself in a very honest way, because I think that was one of the things that was really hurting me, was this feeling of being very disingenuine long before I became an atheist. Just feeling like I had to be something that I wasn't.
Right. That's something that's so attractive about being in the space that we occupy, is that you can really be yourself, like in more ways than one. Like, you want to dye your hair 3 different colors? Yeah, go ahead. We're going to say cool. You want to like go do something crazy. I mean, like, it's a space that, at least the space that I grew up with, was not open to that kind of stuff, especially, people who can relate to that, and fundamentalist Christianity, at least. There was not a space for doubt in your belief. It was a complete shunning, at least in my community. Other belief communities, there may be some room for those kinds of conversations, but for where I came from, that was just not a thing. You couldn't question it, and if you did ask questions, you had to ask very carefully. You had to ask
and come around to
with the
get the right answer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And there's always, you have to ask questions in a way that are going to lead you to the answers that they want to give you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that sucks. That sucks. But you mentioned this cultivation of space, and I think that's really important. And I'm really glad, Erin, it sounds like, at least with someone who has kids, your kids won't have to do that with their parents. It sounds like that you want to be able to create that space for them too, which is really nice. I think that's something that happens, with the change in generation. But,
the idea of celebrating your individuality, it's become really apparent to me again, like, because I've not been a Christian since, I guess it's like since 2019, so it's been a few years, and realizing that as much as I kind of thought I could kind of stay the same, I have changed so much because I've gone through this whole process and I've learned so much about myself, and I'm a part of a community that celebrates that. The more you find out who you are, like you had said, like you can have your own style. There's a space for it, and then to kind of go back to the space for remembering what the expectation was kind of on me. And seeing how different it actually is now. So I do hope to like keep going forward in this space that I'm celebrating other people's individuality, and I'm raising my kids in a way where they feel like they have space to, learn and to be really curious. That's a thing I am always really, that's probably one of my like statements I make with my kids a lot, is like, this is a space for curiosity. You can ask me questions. Like this is what being a kid is about, is there's no like things off limits when you're learning and you're a kid. Like obviously there's gonna be age appropriate answers, but so that part's also really exciting for me. And so those are the things I'm kind of holding on to.
It's interesting too, because I think your family had a similar reaction with my family, is that they watched like 10 minutes of me and then just like kind of made that judgment. I don't think they've watched too much of my stuff since. I think that's so sad, because, I grew up in Christianity for 20 years. I gave that 20 years of a chance, and they couldn't give me 10 minutes of a chance. And I don't know what that says about somebody. I don't know what that says about the kind of ideology that you grew up in, where you think you already have the truth. You think you already know what you're talking about, so you can't even give other people a chance to kind of express themselves or even try to figure themselves out. I think that's maybe the saddest part of it all, because it stifles your curiosity in a way. It kind of just says you don't have to do the work. The work's already been done for you. But since I've been, deconstructing and started that path, like I've found so many new avenues of knowledge and just like cool domains of thought that I would have never even considered or really cared about as a Christian, because I was told I didn't have to really care about these things. And I don't know. I wish that was shared amongst the believers that I know. I wish that they were able to be more open to that, because that difference between being open-minded and closed-minded, it really shows, especially when it comes to, I don't know, stuff like this, where we're kind of here and just saying like, this is it. This is the only life we've got. This is the sense of community we have to have, because going to church doesn't make sense anymore. It's kind of self-built, the world that we've created here now, and it has its downsides to that too. But I'm really glad that it gets to be, I don't know, this space gets to be something that we ultimately decide the fate of, not what a God decides or a pope decides or a church leader. It's up to us as people, and I think that's pretty nice. But this is getting really heavy. I think we should go to some calls, and if your calls are heavy tonight too, folks, that's okay. We want to talk to you guys. We want to talk about your experiences. But this is a tough time of the year for a lot of us, a very pensive time, very reflective time, but also a time where things can get really, really spicy between family. So if you want to just vent that tonight, you call in about it, definitely come talk to us. We're here to talk to you. If you are having doubts, you want to talk to us about it, we'd like to do that. If you think you're a Christian, you're right, and that we're on the wrong path, hey, we'll talk to you too.